Welcome everybody on this sixth lecture and last one lecture on Introduction to Python. In this lecture we will learn how to plot some data using Python. We first plot a single graph, then in one single graph we will plot multiple functions, and finally we will plot multiple figures one next to another. Okay, how do we plot? We're going to use the Matplotlib library, which is a library that allows you to create statics or animated and interactive visualization of Python. You can do a lot with Matplotlib. In this lecture, we will use the Python module. So, as we learned in lecture 4, let's import our library NumPy because we're going to use the SunX functions, and yeah, NumPy is optimized for that, and import our package matplotlib, in particular the module, so matplotlib.pylot, splt as short versions. Okay, let's plot the SunX function in the interval -pi to pi. We're going to use the plot functions. Okay, we have imported our package. Then let's make our points for our intervals. So we're going to use the linspace function, which is a numpy function that gives a list of equidistant points. In this case, let's choose 100, so the function is going to be smooth enough. Then we use the plot function with x and y axis, where the y in this case I call it to be the SunX. And indeed, on the right we can see the function is look really good. Although we don't know which is the y-axis, the x-axis. You maybe know, but yeah. And also it does not have any title. It's kind of confusing. So let's use the x label, y label, and title functions to define them. So the code is the same as before. The main difference is that we add the titles. Note that in the text you can also use LaTeX comments, really cool. And say, okay, plot sin of x from inside the interval -pi to pi. And then let's call our y-axis and x-axis, y and x. Looks amazing. Okay, there is still something that it does not work well. Our x-axis has integers in it and not polar coordinates. So let's change that. Okay, yes, as I said, let's change our integer in polar coordinates. We're going to use xtix functions where the first parameters is going to be the points and then the labels that you want, or which you want to change the point into. Then we want also to save the functions in some name. So yeah, we use the save functions with the name and then the extension we want to save it. Okay, let's have the example. Sorry, I don't know why it's already showed the graph, but doesn't matter. We're going to have the same code as before for this first part, output the same, x label, y label, the same, does not change. Perfect. So, x-axis. Let's choose the label of the x-axis. Okay, we call the labels, and then we say, okay, let's have -pi square, then 0, then pi over 2 again, and then pi. Perfect. Then our point that we want to change is -mp of pi, because we are going to use the NumPy library, pi over 2, 0, pi over 2 again, and pi, and so on. Perfect. So we only need to change the points. If you want to change other points, you just add it. Like, easy. So plot plt xtix, the x1, which are our point that we want to change, and the labels in what we want to show. Then save figure, so we save some places we some place the figures, and then the show function always at the end. If I want to say now, because I forgot before, the show function, if you do not use the show function, then in another script you can add additional information to the figures. So it is useful sometimes to do not use the show function inside a function that plot a graph if you want that the user, the function, needs to add additional information, maybe additional graph, and so on. Okay, and indeed, on the right side, we can see our ticks are changed. Perfect, it looks amazing. Okay, now we want to plot multiple functions. But how can we do it? Easy. Python is really easy on this regard. We just use the plot function multiple times. And obviously we will need also to have a legend, because otherwise the user will not understand which function is it. So yeah, so you're going to use also the legend functions. And the structure, it is in this way: plot, legend. That's the basic structure. Okay, when plotting multiple figures, sometimes you also want to use different lines and different colors. So for lines, you have the tree that you can see. So this, a double point, the dash line, the full line, the dot slash line. There are multiple of them. If you search all line, you can find a lot of different ones. You can also change the color. And for changing the color, you can use the color name, English color names, the RGB code, or the X code, whatever you want. Okay, as an example, let's plot the cos x of x and the sin x of x. Okay, well, why show again? There is a mistake. I'm sorry again. Anyway, the plot function is going to be the same. The code is the same as before. We changed the color. Let's say sign is going to be in green. Dot slash function. Then the cosine, let's have in blue. So it's a peculiar blue, that one. Yeah, that's fine. Let's keep the label of the x as again as before. The result, and what you can see on the right, it looks, I believe, amazing, really nice. You have difference. We have the legend, which is nice. And yeah. Okay. Plotting multiple figures. Well, for plotting multiple figures, we need to use the function subplots. And that have or subplots. It depends, sometimes it's different, but both words can work. You have different parameters, row, columns, and so on. So it works in such a way. We define the figures, they call fig equal plot figures. Inside the parenthesis of figure, so inside the functions, you can add the size of the figures, the name of the figure, a lot of different comments. Just look online. I will not get into it. Let's have a plot that have 2 rows and 1 column. So the 2 figures are one underneath that. So in the first figures, we just have subplot 2, 1. So 2 rows, 1 column on position 1. So first row. Figure 2, subplot, and then plot. Obviously, and the same comments that we used previously. It doesn't change that part. Then figure 2, subplot 2, 2 rows, 1 column, line 2. Again, plot, and then everything else that we did before, you can add those. and finally shows. Okay, let's have an example. The plot goes on inside one underneath the other. Okay, all the beginning stuff, so import the modules, define the function, is the same as we did before. So let's look only the part where we plot them. So, as I said before, figures equal plt dot figures. If we can also decide the size of the figures, we are not going to do that now, so we are not write anything inside the parentheses. Labels. We just want to label the x-axis as we did for the previous figures. So yeah, we define the labels, the point that we want to change. Let's go inside the subplot. Okay, first plot, we want to have the same functions. Yeah, then we write the same function x label, y label, x3 again, as we did before. The title, we change the title in this case. If you add the title also on the second subplot, then you're going to have two different titles. So yeah, well, if you write the title underneath the figures directly over there, so before subplot is going to be the main title for the entire figure. In this case, I use the one for the first one to be the general one. It doesn't change anything. As you see, it works in the same way as before. You need to keep in mind that each subplot works as a single plot that we did on the way before. So in each subplot, you can also plot multiple figures, multiple functions, sorry, or different type of function. You can plot also scatter points over array. You can do whatever you want for each subfigures. Or to be focused on a particular point or the other, to have different ticks. In this case, since I sine and cosine it, I keep the same. Okay. Typos plot is said already. You can also have scatter point, histogram point, and so on. The list is really long on how to plot your data. To plot, for example, scatter point, histogram, and pi, you just use the functions. Instead of plot, it's going to use scatter, bar, and pi, respectively. And so on. So it's kind of nice. Okay. We have done for this lecture series, in particular done for this lecture, what we saw the plot function for plotting lines, for plotting function, yeah. Then the show function, that is basically you say to the program that, okay, complete, no one can add any more information to the plot. The title, then, yeah, doesn't need explanation. X or Y label, if we want to change, if we want to give the names of them, how to save our figures. If we want to change the ticks of the X or Y axis, in the square bracket, you can say, okay, X label, Y label, or X ticks, Y ticks. Yeah, I believe it's clear. And subplot, to plot subplot of figures. Note that subplot is not the only way to plot subfigures. There is also another way. There are additional ways to do it. I would advise you to go to look up on the internet. Okay, I will say thank you for watching these 6 videos. And yeah, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me at l.zambelli@student.rag.nl. Well, yeah, this is my reference. As usual, it's the same always. Enjoy.